Welcome back. I'm Chris Temple, and today we're going to get an update from Dolly Varden Silver. In just a minute, my friend Shawn Khunkhun, who is the CEO of the company, will be joining me. Before he does, the usual preliminary, Shawn and or myself might be making what are construed as forward-looking statements, looking down the road at plans and dreams and aspirations and whatnot. So be aware of that. Dolly Varden is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol DV, and here in the U.S. on the OTCQX, it's under DOLLF. And Dolly Varden, as some of you already know, is one of the companies that I have previously characterized, will characterize again, as one of the elite stories in gold and silver exploration. At present, the company, as you see here, has, and I'll use round numbers, a little under 2 million ounces of gold in inferred and indicated categories of resources, and approaching 140 million ounces of silver in both the inferred and indicated categories. And this is on its broader these days Dolly Varden land package, which has been augmented a couple of times recently. In fact, we talked about that earlier this year in a discussion I had with Shawn, giving his background, the reason he came to Dolly Varden as CEO a bit over 4 years ago, what he's accomplished since then, and the addition of now two major property packages. So I encourage you to go back onto our YouTube channel and watch that discussion as well. It'll give you a lot more background, and or of course be sure to keep up with the company, visit their website, look at their presentation, follow them on social media, etc., etc. Kick the tires, and you'll find, as I have, that this is a really good story for the long term, where I think that patient investors and the better stories out there in precious metals will be very richly rewarded. For present purposes today, we'll be talking with Shawn chiefly about the news they put out in late April about this year's drilling program, which is started off earlier than in most years because of a somewhat milder winter. This last year, they were able to get things cranked up, and they're already well underway with this drilling program. Shawn will talk about the reasons for that and so forth. And as a reminder, folks, where they're at is in one of the most storied gold and silver camps, chiefly, some copper as well, of course, but chiefly gold and silver camps on the planet, and that is the so-called Golden Triangle in British Columbia, which has been a scene of many discoveries, many tens of millions of ounces of gold and silver mined over the decades. And Dolly Varden's gambit, they've already shown great success, especially under Shawn's leadership, is to prove up the next major resources and find some way down the road to monetize them, most likely by a larger company coming in that wants to take this resource off their hands and develop it. So we'll talk about all of that with Shawn and more. I'm also going to ask him his view of what he has seen so far with the market reaction, where Dolly Varden specifically is concerned, to the moves that we've had this year in gold and silver. And back with me again is my good friend Shawn Khunkhun, the CEO of Dolly Varden Silver. Shawn, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Chris.
You know, I alluded a few minutes ago before you came on to the fact that you have commenced your drilling program for the season. We're going to break that down a little bit. In fact, just before you and I got on here, I was taking one of my several laps each day through my social media pages, and here's one that I stumbled across that your team is already posting from site. You're already logging and cataloging drill core, which you'll be doing for a little while yet. So in the announcement, you said that you were going to be splitting up the attention this year, money wise and so forth, about 50-50 between Dolly Varden targets and Homestake targets. Break that down for us a little bit with the whys and wherefores of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started drilling on the 17th of May. And so this is the earliest start we've ever had in a program. It's been a very moderate winter up north. We were actually up in site in February. So these are very unusual, so what's great about all that is we'll be able to produce results faster. And so instead of investors having to wait till August for the first drill results, we'll have them out here fairly soon. In terms of the program, yes, it is a 50-50 split. We've got two main centers of gravity on the project. We've got the silver rich south with the old historic Dolly Varden silver mine, the Torbert mine. So you got two mines there, past producing silver mines, primary silver mines in Canada. One was the richest silver mine in the British Empire at the time. The other was Canada's third largest silver mine. And then you go up the valley about 3 miles to Homestake, all within a 10-mile area that we control 100% of. So we got the silver rich south. As you get up to the ridge, the gold, you're moving from silver to gold. And so we do look at the project at the silver dominant south and the gold dominant north. And so it's a 50-50 split between how we're going to expand. But I want to go into a little bit of further detail. The way I would like to explain it, Chris, is we've got 3 buckets. Okay, so the first bucket is the exploration bucket. This is the risk bucket. This is the reward bucket. Now, when we started with 3 rigs on May 17th, so almost a month ago, we went out to make a new discovery. So when I came into this company 4 years ago, we were a 20-cent stock Canadian, about 16 cents a share US. We had about, I don't know, maybe a $20 million valuation in Canada, 16 million in the United States. And we had 44 million ounces of silver in the ground in all categories, mainly at these 2 historic mines. Now, my question to the team was, I looked at this one mine, Torbert, and I said, okay, we've got about 35 million ounces at Torbert in a 43-101. It's produced about 20 million ounces. So that's a 50 plus million ounce silver deposit. Do we have more of these on the project? Can we get 5 of these on the project and get this thing up to 250 million ounces of silver? And we went out and we found something called Wolf. And there's a great picture on our corporate presentation on our website, and it shows Amanda Bennett, our exploration manager, who I accredit the discovery of the Wolf deposit. And Wolf was a game changer because it told me, yes, there is another 50 million ounce silver deposit on site. Now, what the 3 rigs have been doing since May 17th is they're trying to find the next one. And we've gone up to Moose, and we've gone up to Chance, we've gone up to Escalina. I want to show there's 5. And I want to show that path and that growth to 250 million ounces of silver. Now, where the rigs are today, because that's almost a month ago, right? They were working, and they're working 24 hours a day, Chris. And we're going to be running you talk about social media. We're going to be running one of the coolest social media campaigns where we're sending I got a kid I used to play basketball with. Okay. This kid, he grew up across the street from me. I have a basketball hoop to encourage my kids to go out there and get active, and both of them have. And so this young kid was out there, rain or shine. Jordan Groves is his name. And his mom called me up about a year or so ago, and she said, hey, Jordan's going off to Queen's University. He's graduating, and can you sit down and have a coffee with him and talk to? Everybody knows I love coffee. So
you and me both. I'm already coffeeed out for the day, though. I had my half a pot by about 10:30 this morning.
So Jordan was at Queen's. He's 19, and he's come to work with me. And he's coming to work with Dolly Varden for the summer. And I'm telling you, Chris, watch out. This guy's taking my job. He's on fire. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And so I said to him, hey, slow down here in the office. Like, you're making me look bad. So we're sending him up to site, and we're going to run a series where he's going to show you what happens up there. And it's going to be, he's going to, one day he'll be with a driller, and one day he'll be handling core, and one day he'll be out prospecting. But he's going to give your viewers and our audience an idea of what it's like. And we'll even have him here in the office, and he'll accompany me to meetings with investment advisors, fund managers, corporates, et cetera. And I want to give people an idea of like what it is we do here at Dolly Varden, but not through my lens, but through a young person's lens. And I really want to get the 19-year-olds And the new generation introduced to what a wonderful industry this is. And we need smart young people to come in and to do this in a responsible way. So that's a fun thing we're going to be doing, and more on that. But
That's
getting back
cool.
to
I mean, you know me. I love graphics. I love social media. And a conference I was just at a couple or 3 weeks ago in New York, one of the workshops we did, a whole subset of it was how to get young people involved. And one quick little ditty. Forgive me to interrupt just for a second with this, but we were talking. I co-ran a panel on copper, and we were talking about the copper projects that are slated for development if only they could get permitted just in Arizona. Where here in the US, if you added those few and a couple others that have been bottled up, the US, believe it or not, could be copper independent at some point if all of these things were open. But one of the guys that we had on the panel said, but I got bad news for you. Even if that happened, even if we got permitted, and he ticked off a few projects, he said, we need 3,000 people covering this, and this. They aren't there. Why aren't they there? It's because the younger generation doesn't understand that we are, in my view, at the beginning of a secular bull market for commodities. That's where a lot of the jobs of the future are going to be. Instead of having a tech or AI or healthcare company willing to pay you to go to college, and if you'll marry them and have a great career, it's going to be extractive industries and all the different parts of the food chain that do that. So I'm glad that you're one of the ones getting out in front of that with this guy, and he's going to be able to resonate, I think, with kids his age. I say kids, I got 3 grandkids driving cars, for crying out loud. So that's I'm getting old. But anyway, continue, please.
Yeah, so getting back to your question, so we're going up, and we're doing this exploration work. So a third of the program is focused on growth. It's focused on discovery. It's focused on showing the prospectivity of the area. Now, the other 2/3 of the project, and this is where the 3 rigs are today, a third of the project is on Wolf. So we're going to delineate a resource. We're going to put ounces into a formal report. We're going to continue to show that Wolf is open to the southwest, to the northeast. And so a third of the project is focused on that new, exciting silver deposit expansion at Wolf that's gone from a very, very small vein at surface. We've now got 950 meters of strike length and growing. So we're going to infill it. We're going to try to expand it. So 1/3 exploration, 1/3 Wolf. And then we got an exciting new discovery. And there's an idea that I've been talking about, which is in the Golden Triangle. We're in the Golden Triangle. We're in an area where in the last 30 years, there's been 150 million ounces of gold discovered. It's one of the greatest camps in the world. It is the richest 20 kilometers on the planet. Now, what starts as a silver mine in the Golden Triangle, so this is Premier, this is SK Creek, this is Brucejack, 3 of the most famous gold mines on the planet. They started as silver mines like Dolly Varden. And then gold and silver have different melting temperatures. Gold is, the heat source, the gold, and then you move into the copper. So what I've always wondered at Dolly Varden was this unique 99% silver going to transition into gold. And last year we went from drilling 25, 30 meters of 300 and 400 gram per ton silver, which is incredible, wide, high grade. And then as we moved up that 3 miles to the ridge, we started drilling 90 meters, 93.5 meters of 200 grams of silver and 2 grams of gold. So now we were moving from a silver system into a silver gold system. And then we stepped out and we drilled 12.5 meters of 79 grams per ton gold. And we also had a hit 26 meters of 46 grams of gold, like world-class stuff. Best drill results in 2022 and 2023 in the Golden Triangle. So a third of the program is to follow up on that exciting new gold discovery up at Homestake. And, we got 3 rigs. We got a great team. We'll have lots of results. So that's the plan. The plan is it's a balance of de-risking the project by doing the appropriate infill drilling to increase our confidence in how the mineralization, the continuity, the grade, the consistency. So it's a de-risking effort. It's an expansion and extension effort. So it's going into areas that we know are there. Are they open? Can we grow them?
Right.
And then the exciting part is where can we find a brand new one? And
Wow.
that's what's really moved the needle. So I think it's the right approach. And we've got and Chris, I've got a technical committee. The guy that's the head of the technical committee, he's on the board of directors. His name is Michael Henriksen. Michael worked for Newmont for over a decade. He was the head structural geologist. He was the guy the biggest gold company in the world would send out there to go, Michael, is this going to be a tier one asset? Can you take this 6 million ounces to 10 million ounces? And he signed up for Dolly Varden. He signed up for the technical committee. He's the guy who is approving our plan.
Nice.
Now, if that wasn't enough, who else is there? The vice president of exploration for Hecla. So you got the fastest growing established silver miner on the planet. You got Kurt Allen. So you got Henriksen, Allen, and then you've got my dear friend, Rob McLeod, who is a third generation miner from Stewart, BC. He rounds out that technical committee. Rob is, he's put his heart and soul in this project. He came on to Dolly Varden's board of directors when I did February 18th, 2020. And he's been just such an incredible mentor to the young geos that we have in the team. And he's had 4 or 5 sales. I can't keep up with him now in, moving the benefit of the shareholders. And so we got an income. Dolly Varden is first class.
That's great. You mentioned something earlier that I didn't even know. You said it was Pretium, Premier, and which started the silver mines?
So this is interesting history. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go back to the 1920s. So, 1929 depression,
Yeah.
right? What got the North through the depression? It was gold mining.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you go back, and I've got pieces of paper I can pull out of my desk here where going back, I've got memos that the president of the premier mining company. So the Guggenheim family out of New York, you got the famous Guggenheim Museum, the Guggenheim, they owned Premier. And I've got communication that dates back to the 20s and the 30s. And so what happened is the first explorers came in, they made a discovery. What ended up happening was they produced 45 million ounces of silver. But what Premier was known for, it was the richest gold mine of the era. It produced 2 million ounces of gold. And if you start thinking about silver to gold ratios, 2 million ounces of gold trumps the 45 million ounces of silver.
Right.
But the point is, that was the richest gold mine on the planet. It started as a silver mine, became a gold mine. So maybe that was a one-off. But then you fast forward to hole 109. That was the discovery hole. Think about the persistence of these miners back then. There's glaciers, there's no roads, there's no electricity, they drilled 109 holes before they made a discovery. Are we as resilient, as persistent today as they were back then? I don't think so. And so when SK Creek was discovered, I've always thought of SK Creek because it was 49 grams per ton. It was better than an ounce, almost an ounce and a half of gold, right? An ounce and a half of gold on average. The project was so rich that when Barrick had it, Barrick was flying the gold out. They didn't have roads. It was so profitable that they were flying the gold, and they were doing it at a time the average gold price was sub 300.
Yeah.
So you got a sub 300, you got a 2 handle on the gold price, not 1,000, 100. They're flying gold out and because it's 49 grams per ton. But guess what? How about the 200 million ounces of silver? And Chris, you're not going to believe me. The average grade on the silver was 2 2,400 grams per ton. It was 2.5 kilos of silver on average,
Wow.
over 200 million ounces of it. So Premier started as a silver mine. Eskay started as a silver mine. Now, the best example, though, and that's the one you asked about. So there was a company. So Rick Rule gave Bob Quartermain $2 million and said, go out, and silver was $4. And he said, you should go out and lock up all the silver projects that don't work at $4, but work if silver goes to 15.
Mhm.
Okay. So Bob did it through a company called Silver Standard. And the Brucejack deposit was spun out of Silver Standard into a company called Pretium that started producing from their Brucejack mine in 2017. This was my inspiration. Bob Quartermain and Brucejack was my inspiration to get into the Golden Triangle, because Bob brought power. He brought the Northwest Transmission Line. It was a $100 million investment. He led it. He raised a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for Brucejack, got it into production. It's one of the richest mines out there. Newcrest bought it from Pretium for $2.7 billion. And now subsequently Newmont has bought Newcrest, and they're the operator there. But it started in Silver Standard, just silver deposit. And it was actually Rob's uncle, Don McLeod, who Silver Standard bought the project in his company and rolled it into Silver Standard. So it's a great history. It's a history that does tie back to Dolly Varden, in the sense that, nephew Rob is a director and our technical advisor and on the technical committee. And the mistake that was made at Brucejack was, when Uncle Don had it, it was only a 250,000 ounce gold equivalent project. And then they turned the rigs around and they hit the Valley of the Kings. And so those lessons, the nuances, the folds, and the post-mineralization faulting, those lessons are learned and have been taught to my exploration team, who've worked at, Rob Van Egmond, our VPX. He was at SNP in the 80s. I'm dating him a little. Sorry, Rob. But our guys and gals have worked on almost every major project in the Golden Triangle, and they're taking that knowledge. And that's why in this 100-year-old mining camp, we're making new discoveries.
Well, and that's, what's the old saying as far as mining, the best place to find a mine is in the head frame of an old one. It's near other major discoveries, because, where there's one, there's more than one. Like you said, even within your claim block, you think that you've got at least 50 million ounce deposits ultimately of silver. So we'll see.
And I'm hoping we've got 1 million ounce gold deposit. I'm hoping there's at least 2. Now, I think the best place to find a mine is where you have access.
That's true too.
Something that I've learned recently is, and I never knew this, Chris, it's not grade, right? It's not depth. It's not metallurgy. It's not infrastructure. The number one problem that a mining project faces is access. And if you think about some of the recent examples of whether it's the Pebble deposit in Alaska, or more recently Cobre Panama, if you think about access, you could have the most tremendous endowment. If the community doesn't want it, right, you've got nothing. And I think the one thing that we have in the Golden Triangle, and it's thanks to the local town of Stewart and the supporting towns of Terrace and Smithers and the First Nations groups like the Tahltan or the Nisga'a, is there's been mining here for 100 years. They're planning for mining for the next 100 years. It's amazing. I think we get into this mindset, you get these election cycles that are 4 years, and you get earnings that are every quarter. And we get into this mindset where it's short term. But I'll tell you, Newmont, Nisga'a, tall tan, tech, they're planning for the next 100 years. And that's how you have to operate in mining.
Yeah, for sure. So the culmination of all of this season's drilling is at some point you're going to upgrade your numbers. And do you have a tentative schedule for when you might do an update to the resources?
It's a great question. Um, I think, and again, we're in the exploration business,
Right.
and we have a foundational resource there. You know, one of the greatest companies that is one of the best examples of wealth creation in our industry is Great Bear Resources. And Great Bear went from 15 cents to $30 without a resource. And, you know, for me, I would feel it would be difficult for me to have something like that occur without a foundational resource. The nice thing with Dolly is we've got the foundational resource. So even if, you know, we've got some flexibility in when we put out an updated resource estimate. Our shareholders have a foundational estimate, but I think it would be appropriate come April or May of next year to update that report, but then also add some economics in the form of a PEA to take a new estimate and put out some economics around that estimate. It's the reality is, Chris, look, there are large companies that either own us or are circling around us, and they're going to come up with their own estimate. They're not saying, hey, you know, because depending on, are they a silver miner? Are they a gold miner? Are they looking for the base metal opportunities that some of our claims have? Depending on how they want to mine it, you know, it may be different for who gets it, you know, what they envision in terms of mine life and what their approach would be. Would they be looking to actually try to grow it to see how big it is before they came up with a plan, depending on who ultimately develops this project? It may be, and so us putting out a resource estimate isn't necessary for, you know, a sale. Or you look at, like, we've got a 15% corporate investor in Hecla. I'm pretty confident that Hecla has their own internal estimate of what we are today and what it can be. And but I think for our shareholders, I'm very happy to put it, you know, to put out a new estimate. So it's the possibility of late Q1, early Q2, and then an economic study following.
Well, a good answer. An economic study, I think, is as important, or maybe even more so, for the people who are going to worry about that kind of thing. Because as you pointed out, you mentioned Great Bear. You could look at Virginia Mines when they sold Eleanor in Quebec years back to Gold Corp. There was no resource estimate there. And I mean, these big companies that are looking over your shoulder and or our major shareholders already of Dolly Varden, they're just as good at doing math as you are. And they don't need to be told when they see these drill intercepts as they come out. You know, they can figure it out just like you can. So the bottom line, though, is that as I said at the outset, you know, you've got one of the elite exploration stories around high grade gold and silver both. You've got the kicker with that last project that you bought, where you might have some copper and gold one of these days. We didn't even talk about that today, but again, folks, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch mine and Shawn's interview previously, and we get into that as well. So what I want to wrap up with is to talk about the metals markets generally. I'd like to get your feedback real quick on how you've seen things. Of course, in 2024, we've seen a new nominal price high for gold, well above $2,400 an ounce. We've seen silver for a little while break $30 and then kind of waver either side of it in the recent past. Both of them have brought some attention back to resources, but it still, to me, has been a story of retail investors that while they've moved a little bit in the direction of this space, it's not what most people would have expected based on the movement of the share price. So have you, of the metal prices, I meant to say. So what have you seen? Are you getting more inquiries? Are you getting more people that are just out of the blue saying, hey, I heard about you and I'd like to know more, since gold and silver are up? Or from your perspective, is everybody else still out there playing with the Magnificent Seven stocks and GameStop and those kind of things?
Yeah, so great question. You know, I've been around this for 20 years, And I saw an incredible market 2009, 10, 11 in the resource space. And, even 2006, 7 were incredible. Um, Look, I noticed something quietly occurring in and around 2019, where there was a little bit of a pulse. After 6 years of, absolute doldrums, there was a bit of a pulse coming back in. But, we saw a little blip in 2020, right? We had a few good months there from, call it May to August. Um, and we've had a few 2021 moments where, but there's, I believe that we've been in a very, very strong market here. And the corrections are being bought, the corrections are short, and it is it's reaching such a feverish pitch that I'm starting to hear the generalists now. So I'll give you some dates. So if you go back, it started on February 29th. I believe it was a Friday. And we've seen a huge move starting in about mid-March. So mid-March to mid-May was one of the best 60-day stretches we've had in a long time. And in early April, I was starting to get phone calls from big institutional investors saying, I've got money for you to develop your project. Like, do you want $300 million? Like, I started getting some really interesting incoming. And getting back to young Jordan, our summer intern, the 19-year-old. And I'm asking myself, is Jordan that good? Or is it silver going from 25 to 30 that all of a sudden we've got a lineup of corporates and like tension? So either Jordan's, or maybe both. But it's no, there's a, but with all that being said, Chris, the venture exchange. So this is the junior exchange that Dolly Varden is listed on in Canada, right? The venture exchange is trading lower today than it was when we went through the great financial crisis of 2008. So the venture exchange was at over 3,000 points in 2007. It got down to 600, 3,000 down to 600, right? It's below 600 today. So yeah, there's a little bit of a spark of interest, right? But the reality is maybe it's impacted Agnico Eagle, right? Maybe it's impacted the top tier producers, the top three. But for the Dolly Vardens of the world and for the venture exchange, we're in the sub basement. So the other thing that I'm so confident on, the fact that the silver price, we're still talking about a 70 something 1-to-1 ratio into gold.
Right.
Like the fact, I'll tell you where I would think we were in a mature bull market is if the silver to gold ratio was 30-to-1. But it's not. It's 70-to-1 plus. So silver is trading at 60% its all-time high. Whereas, yeah, gold's put in a new all-time high and copper's put in a new all-time high, but silver hasn't.
No.
And so, silver, when silver starts really outperforming, and some could say, listen, silver's up like 25%, gold's up 19%, so silver is outperforming. But if gold is up 20%, silver should be up 60. And if silver's up 60%, Dolly Varden should be up 180. Like those are the types of numbers that we want to see. And that's the type of, outperformance. So it's early days, but the patient isn't dead. And, or we've gone from the sub basement to the basement, but man, this office building's got 100 floors and, we haven't even started. And when it happens, it could be days or weeks. It's not going to be months or years. So you have to be invested now.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. And that's what I actually wanted to close with, Shawn and folks, is that, we can try and micromanage the timing of when we're going to really get the big lift off for the precious metals, which translates into the equities as well. I saw a chart the other day, I'll share it here real quick, of just one example, family offices. You take the whole universe of family offices covered by, well, you see it on the screen here, and 1% of all of their money is in commodities overall. That includes base metals and precious metals. I shared a statistic a while back that if you go back to 1980, when the gold price made that one brief but extreme nominal high of over $800 an ounce, over 20% of the S&P 500 valuation was gold mining stocks. Today, it's not 1% of the S&P 500. So a lot of other play toys have been out there for generalist investors. And when the point comes that the light bulb goes off, and there's a couple of events I think have to take place first, but as I've expressed before, we're months away from those, not years. When the turn comes, and you said it exactly right, Shawn, it's not going to be months or years that this is going to evolve. When the avalanche starts, it might be days. Because a light bulb is going to go off over people's heads that, holy cow, we are in the great stagflation. Holy cow, these metals moves are real. And everyone's going to lurch from one side to the other. And it's going to be like a 300 or 400 pound man jumping into a kitty size wading pool, the impact that that's going to have on these equities. So, folks with the premier stories out there like Dolly Varden, don't wait for that day to happen and end up in line behind everybody else. You should be taking your positions now, when these stocks are still unappreciated, they're still largely undiscovered, and I think you're going to be very happy down the road. Your strategy, Shawn, is, as I said earlier in the introduction, you're still in that first part of the Lassonde curve, making new discoveries, adding ounces in the ground. And you're going to be rewarded for that one of these days. You've had a bit of a move, in the last few months, but I don't think that's anything compared to what's coming. So keep up the good work, buddy. I appreciate the time today, and look forward to the next time our paths cross in person.
Right on, Chris. So we'll talk to you real soon. Thank you for having me on.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.